Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the chat. We'll get this figured out here tonight. We're going to talk about treating beehives for Varroa, and the best way to treat it is with oxalic acid. And there's several ways people treat hives. They put strips in them. There's a lot of strips that you put in these hives. They end up being expensive and not really good for the hive. They contaminate your wax. And about the best way to treat, I feel, is with the oxalic acid. Good evening, Elijah.
Hi, Don. How are you?
Oh, pretty good.
Good. Looks like we got.
I think I'm already
Yes,
broadcasting. Okay. I'm talking about oxalic acid vaporizing tonight, and hopefully people will pick this method. It's 100% mite kill. Now, in your bee catalogs, there's dozens of different products you put in the hive. Some, I guess, are approved, some are not, some are a little bit more caustic than others, but you have to remember you're contaminating wax with some of these chemicals. This here is the most natural, and I got one right here. I've been using oxalic acid for 15 years. I'm going to get back to where you can see. This is a brand new unit, and you can see this is for resale. I have a man that makes these here. Now, I've stated many times in my videos that oxalic acid is 100% effective. 15 years ago, a lot of people was poo-pooing this idea, but I found an article, and you can see this is bee culture, and it's in the year 2015, and a young lady works at the University of Georgia also stated in here that it's cheap and most effective. So things that I've been preaching for many years, people are just now starting to catch on. I don't know why. The big fight against oxalic acid, it's been used in the UK, been used in Canada. The only thing I can figure is big chemical companies fight this because they're not making money on this. And basically this is a product, people are scared of it because it's called oxalic acid. It's used as wood bleach, but the article that's in here, it's got about 4 pages explaining oxalic acid is basically, it's contained in a lot of your vegetables, green matter. See, here's some, you can see on this page here, people started advertising, selling knockoffs of this vaporizer we done probably back in '90. So I might be a little ahead of my time or a little whacked off, but I'm knowing what works and what don't work. And that's basically what I'm trying to do, is get people to where they will try things that work and have a proven record they're working. Liza, does this chat,
Yeah,
is it
seems
working?
to be. Michael, are you there? Michael?
Michael?
Hello? Guess not. I guess he's not on yet. Don, what is the issue of that bee culture? So if people want to buy that or look at that.
This, I was at a bee club the other night. This is actually, here's the date right here.
Why don't you say it, because we can't see it too well.
This is an old edition, June 2015.
Okay, so this past June.
Culture. Yeah, well, in 2015, yes. American Bee Journal has also done some. There's several other magazines that have wrote articles up on this. And for some reason, what I can't figure out, one company, one bee supply house that sells products. It says that they're only one that is licensed to issue oxalic acid. Well, oxalic acid, let me see if I can show a picture of it here, which is funny. If you go and want to buy it as a bee treatment, you have to go through this one particular place as a source. Look right here in the magazine. Can you see what it says? Wood bleach.
Yeah.
Can you read that? Wood bleach. So I don't know why people are doing this here, trying to make everything so hard. I mean, let's face it, if you got more than 5 or 6 hives, an investment in buying an oxalic acid vaporizer is well worth it. Take and look at the cost that you spend for one hive if you lose it. Now, I teach a lot of different ways to treat hives, mainly because I teach beekeeping here. And you can treat hives with anything from garlic powder to oregano ground up, thymol, thyme crystals. I mean, there's a lot. Menthol is basically used for trachea mites, but there's dozens. If I was to try to sit down and explain everything that a person could use to treat mites, it would take endless and endless nights of doing this. But if you're going to be into this, oxalic acid is the best 100% kill. I do not like to use it as a dribble. As a vapor, you can do it with honey on the hive. You can do it with open brood. If you're doing it with a dribble, what you're doing is you're injecting liquid with sugar with oxalic acid in it, and you're going to end up killing brood. And it's a slight chance you might contaminate honey if you get it into the honey. So I don't recommend it. I use the vapor. Now, if you're buying packages from people that you don't know how they're treating, one way you could do it is in your package, when you get it, mix up a solution of 1:1 and put a teaspoon of oxalic acid in there and shake it up real good. Remove the queen out of your package. Spray your new package down. That way you ensure you don't have no mites. But leave the bees dry off good before you try to install the queen back. Is there a reason why our chat window is not open
Nobody's
tonight?
called in yet, but you got some questions coming up.
Okay, good.
Do you see the one from Herschel?
No, I don't. My chat is not open
okay.
here.
Herschel wants to know how much you sell your vaporizers for.
These vaporizers, they're made from aluminum. These are $175, and most places we ship them for $15 east of the Mississippi. West of the Mississippi is usually about $20, and that runs pretty good. These things, the man that makes these is a retired machinist. He still makes these for me, and in all these years, we have never had any recalls. If you have any problem at all, he'll stand behind them. And I've got personally, I use 2 here at the bee school here, and the students are a little rough on them. They dropped them, they banged them, and they're still working good. Good evening, Keith.
Hey, Don. How are you?
Oh, we're doing good.
Got a question or several questions. This may sound very simple, but I've been to a lot of bee seminars, and most of the speakers suggest boiling water when you feed your bees. Do you boil the water, or you just use regular tap water without boiling?
I use a garden hose in a 55-gallon barrel.
That's kind of what.
Stop and think about. If I was to boil water to make my sugar water, I'm using anywhere from 2 to 3 55-gallon barrels of sugar a week. So the idea of boiling water I talked to a professor quite a few years ago, and what he was trying to explain to me is when you boil water and sugar, it becomes a carcinogen then. You change the composition of the sugar. So you're better off to just dissolve it in just cold water.
Okay. Got another question. I'm going to attempt, or at least continue to cut out queen cells this year. When you cut out a queen cell, let's say it's 70 to 80 degrees outside, how long can that queen cell survive before you have to put it in another hive? Yeah.
In a hive? Well, I've actually used to use a Cool Whip container, and I used to cut 15, 20, sometimes 50 cells. And what I done is I lined the Cool Whip container with an old T-shirt, and I put a lid on it, and I have them on the pickup truck seat. As long as you don't keep them in direct sun, I've had good luck for an hour. But now we're talking about a ripe queen cell, not one that's 10 days or 12 days old. The thing you have to be careful about is when it's a ripe queen cell, you're going to hatch within 24 hours or within 3 or 4 even. Look at the end. If it's thinned out and they're starting to chew it out a little bit, that's an hour to 2 to 3 hours in that area. Okay. You can be a little rougher on it, but I wouldn't play basketball with them. But the main thing is keep them out of direct sun.
Okay. Hey, Don, how did you get the nickname the Fat Bee Man?
Oh, that was kind of a joke 15, 20 years ago. And I used to go on different chats and stuff. And that was, but actually it kind of stuck with me. And I don't know. I have a couple students say I should patent or trademark the name. I said, well, no one else going to take that name.
One thing I've done, I've made a lot of your top hive feeders, and during the wintertime,
right,
I've just flipped them over, and it's worked great.
Well, I've had people actually fill them up with shavings, from the wood shop, fill them up, and they do that. Now, if you got the plans for the hive top feeder, my son actually altered those this last year. We found by drilling a 1-inch hole in the back of the feeder, putting a screen on it on the inside, actually helps ventilate a whole lot more. You don't get that moisture from your syrup inside the feeder up against the lid.
Okay, thanks, Don.
So I didn't know if you got the updated version of it.
It's been about a year. I've got several of your plans.
They seem to work.
Oh, they work great. Love the nukes. Good. Love the nuke plans. Building a bunch of them.
Did you see where we altered our mini nukes? I'll probably do that. Do a show on that next week. We used to use a Coke bottle with a hole drilled in the lid, and there are basically so many and you have to get, and it's time consuming. So what we did was take our feeder that was designed for the 5-frame deeps, and we altered them where they fit the minis. Now you have a half of a quart to a quart that goes in a little mini nuke. So that gives you 3 to 4, sometimes 5 days feeding rather than once a day or twice a day on those Coke bottles on the minis.
I've got the old print. But they work great.
You alter it, I think. We've done. I've done a video probably 3-4 years ago on the progression of about 25 years of feeders, and it's an old video up on YouTube. You can see where the first ones that we done was basically aluminum flashing, and we had listened to a lot of other people, 1 gallon to 2 gallons. And what we found out is with that aluminum in there, with 1 gallon to 2 gallons, it was flexible. It was attached at the wood. And when we used our caulking in there, about 6 months down the road, they would flex enough that they would leak. So we revised them and used a solid piece of plywood. And then the next revision was the plywood was delaminating, and you'd have to replace that whole piece or cut it in half. So we went to a 6-inch piece in that feeder, where if it delaminated in 6 months, 3 or 4 years, you just knock that 6-inch piece out, just run a new bead of caulking, and you're back in business. But then we keep improving, and we went to the large lasagna pan, which we use in our out yards. That one holds like 2 to 3 gallons. The next thing we went with is the milk jugs, because they don't have no interaction of metals, and they last enough if the sun don't hit them.
I'm using milk jugs.
Yeah, the milk jugs, well, basically what we're using is water jugs. I drink a lot of distilled or just plain water, spring water. And if you're going to use the milk jugs, you got to make sure you put just a drop of dishwashing soap in there and shake them up good and get that milk out of there, so you don't get that bacteria in there where it'll start to ruin your sugar syrup.
Don, when are you going to start feeding your bees sugar water mixture?
Well, right now, I just looked at the thermometer. We're right at 31 degrees. Yesterday we was about 25, so we until it warms up, it's not much use. I don't think I'll be feeding for another 2 weeks, 3 weeks anyhow. The red maples is when I start watching. We just dumped dry sugar in about the 1st of January, then again in December we put dry sugar in.
All right.
I haven't been making fondant or those sugar boards probably for 20 to 25 years.
Well, I sure appreciate all your help, Don.
Well, anytime you got a question, you jump in there. That's what I'm here to help you be a better beekeeper.
Thanks so much.
And spend less money. Okay. I don't think our chat is working, because on other ones they was lining up. David's going to come in, and then I guess Joe's trying to come in. Evening, David. Get your camera on. There might be something up at the top where you might have to click to get that chat to work. I'm not sure. This thing is Greek.
Here comes Joe.
Can you hear me, Don? Can you hear me?
Evening, Joe.
Yeah. Hey,
I
tried to get some cheap dish soap to put in the melter thing for making wax, and I couldn't find any non-scent.
Wait a minute. Dish soap in your melter.
Yeah.
Is that what you said?
Yeah, in the water or not the melt part of it, but for the water that you release agent.
Well, yeah, you only need maybe a drop or two on your board and rub it around. Probably no more. If you're doing it all day long, you wouldn't have 6 drops in there. But basically, go up to the dollar store and just buy the no-name, the cheapest stuff you find, and it won't be perfumed at all.
Well, I went to the pretty cheap. It was 99 cents for a bottle, and it had lemon scent. I didn't know if you thought that would hurt it or not.
Lemon scent won't hurt nothing. Okay. I mean, not going to hurt a thing. I've used it in the past and never hurt nothing. My hands always smell good.
Okay, I just couldn't find any non-perfumed at all. Mm-hmm. Okay, I'll get off first so somebody else can call in. I don't know, that other question keeps staying up there. Can't nobody call in when that's up there.
What question's that?
A statement right there. I got it in the. Yeah. I'll get off first so somebody else call in.
Well, I don't know. Maybe I'm doing something wrong in that, but usually when I watch other blasts on the side there, it shows a chat open.
Don, you don't see Brian's question?
I guess David. No, I don't see no questions. I see on the left side it says questions, but it's blank.
All right. Brian asked, read on B-Source forum that oxalic acid becomes formic acid if it's heated above 372 degrees. What are your thoughts?
on oxalic acid or sugar?
He says that oxalic acid becomes formic acid if it's heated above 372 degrees.
Well, that I don't know. I'm not a chemist. I know I use oxalic acid for quite a few years, and it actually boils in this vaporizer and turns to a vapor. All the moisture comes out of it. You know, I guess a chemist could ask that question.
Okay, David's still trying to get on here. He can't get his video or audio or something going. And I'm going to switch to my headphones.
I think
because I guess my audio.
He might be on a cell phone.
All right, we'll get.
Hey everyone, the Archdiocese office is requesting everyone to stay off the internet for at least 2 to 3 hours tonight. Otherwise, you're going to have to pay the $79 contribution. So let's go ahead and get that into effect.
What the frick was that again?
I don't know.
Here's another question. What is the best technique for getting an accurate mite count in a hive?
That I don't know. I've never done a mite count. I usually look at my bees. You know, I watch the bees. If you're looking to do mite counts, what I would basically do is get you a toothpick and pop the caps off of about 8 or 10 of your drones and pull them out. That's the best way. If you got mites on those drones, then be looking for them. But I've had students come up here, and a lot of people worry about doing mite counts. I've never done a mite count. Mite counts can change basically overnight. If you're using oxalic acid, there wouldn't be any need to even do mite counts. If your hive has got a lot of brood in it and the population is just steady, increasing all the time, I don't think you have a mite problem.
Okay, no other questions? We all caught up? Anybody wants to log in and video chat with Don, please go ahead.
Is there something on the top anywhere of this chat where you open a chat up on the side? I know that you can do it on Google Hangouts. I done it the other day, and I got a bunch of hate mail. They said it was a crazy thing. I was trying to videotape with one camera and try to do a class with the other, and it didn't work out too good.
Well, we got 260 people watching us right now, it looks like, or at least subscribed. 35 people on right now.
Yeah. I wish they'd jump in here and we're talking about it. But, you know, as far as mite treatments, I mean, you could basically take powder sugar and dust mites. That's going to knock them off. I don't believe a lot in it because it's like spinning your tires and not going nowhere. But now you can use oregano. That's another good treatment. Grind it up in your blender, make a powder, mix it with powder sugar, dust your bees down. It works good. Also, you can use garlic powder with a little sugar, dusting them. Don't use the garlic salt. I know the garlic powder works. I talked to several people that do it. Personally, I wouldn't want to do it because I'd be afraid the garlic would descent your queen, and that's the problem I worry about with a lot of stuff. Oregano and thyme. You could take dried thyme leaves and you can actually grind that stuff and put it in your hive. There's lavender, there's spearmint, there's wintergreen. There's a lot of ways you can treat bees. You don't need to just use one thing. That's why when I do organic classes, I give a lot of various ways to treat bees. What I like, or the next student or 2 students after that, everybody's got their preference, what they feel is the best for their bees. So you want to keep your bees alive, you have to do something. Now, one good thing to do is rotating foundation out. If you don't want to buy commercial foundation, use starter strips, or you could take the wedge, turn that wedge sideways and rub some beeswax from out of your own hive on it and let them draw foundationless. You just You have to just handle them a lot more careful until they build up a little cocoons in there. And the cocoons is basically when the frame itself is starting to turn to a light cocoa to a dark chocolate. That's buildup of cocoons. Each generation of bees that's hatching and developing in there, they leave a little cocoon behind. That's what gives your comb strength and stuff. But mine don't ever get that far because usually 2 years putting them in there, they're sold out as nukes or I'm rotating them out. So that's the main thing. Simple techniques can keep mite counts down without putting chemicals or even doing a lot to it.
Brian has a question for you, Don. What do you recommend for swelling with a bee sting? Girl got me yesterday.
Well, I did a video. You can pull it up on YouTube. Plantain is very good. It's a wild weed. It grows in most places. If you turn the bottom of the leaf over, it's got 5 ridges on it. You can take the leaf itself, either spit on it, chew it up, get that liquid out, and put it on your bee sting. Now, don't squeeze the bee stinger with your fingers. Take your fingernail or your credit card or your Hive tool and scrape the stinger off. Rub that solution on that little juice there, and you'd be surprised. It'll pull all that poison out, and you won't swell.
And it's a weed, so it's free.
It's free. It grows everywhere.
Jim has a question for you. Here in Southeast Virginia, we too are having some temperatures in the teens. Is it common to see a small pile of dead bees outside the entrance? I estimate maybe 25 to 30 bees. My wife is concerned about them.
25 or 30 is basically not a lot, considering if you have a fairly good sized hive. That's just natural mortation. You know, they're going to die. They're going through their life cycle. And the reason you're seeing so many is it's so cold. Basically, your undertaker bees are not hauling them out. They're not flying. So they're dying. They're dropping to the bottom of the hive. When a day warms up, you're going to see them. They're going to start clearing them out. We talked about that a little bit last week. Get you a turkey feather or a chicken feather, and you can stick it in the opening and gently just pull them out. If you live where you got snow, best thing to do is brush the entrance off, make sure that they can breathe or have some good ventilation in there. Most people are afraid to drill boxes. You need to drill boxes, have ventilation. Plenty of ventilation is the key.
Ed has a question. What are the measurements for your hive stands?
I like to have all my hives, other than my mini nukes, we like to have them to where the bottom board is just about kneecap or your knee. That way, when you put one box, it's comfortable. 2 boxes, you can still lift it with not, pulling a muscle. It's ridiculous to put them on 1 cement block or 2 cement blocks. And then when you have to work a brood chamber, you're bending over. And if you're doing very many hives, it's not good on the back. And then if you're stacking up a lot of boxes, you have to lift chest high. And if you lift a medium, you're lifting 60, 70 pounds. And if you're not a weightlifter or working out on a regular basis, a woman or a guy that works in an office is going to pull a muscle in his back. Then you'll be up there trying to get rehabilitated. So I think a lot of everything I try to teach out there is basically common sense.
Keith is trying to log in again.
Don, what type of bees are you running in your
honeybees?
Just a mixture of different breeds?
Actually, I had 3 new students that signed up and was taking classes last week, and that was the subject that come up. I had run Russians at one time, pure Russians, pure Italians, pure Carniolans, and some pure Caucasian. And the old way of thinking is if you go to the dog shelter and you pick up this old mongrel dog, you can just about run over it with a car and it's healthy. You get a German Shepherd with the papers or a poodle or a boxer with papers, the darn thing is sick all the time. So I guess from trial and error, I've learned mixing of the breeds, you get a genetic verification in there, a little variety, and they pick up the good and the bad from different bees. The main thing I concentrate on, is bees that you can work. Then I want bees that's going to live through the winter and be productive. I really don't care about their pedigree as long as I can keep them alive and they're working. I don't like to say bad things about any particular race of bees, but I will not run pure Russians in this bee yard because we've had problems. They're very aggressive, and in the videos you can see I have children and their parents come up here. I have women that work these beehives, and most of them work with their shorts or flip-flops out there, and it's just not a good thing. If you're going to have a yard somewhere out in the boonies where nothing's there, I mean, you can run about any kind of bee you want. Your difference in your races of bees, your Carniola and your Russian are going to be more of a survivor type bee, where your Italian and the old Starline bees, they'll just eat themselves out of house and home. They don't know when to shut down. Your Carniolans and your Russians are based on pollen. The more pollen coming in, the more they're laying. And when the pollen shuts down, the queen starts to shut down. That's one of the main reasons right now I'm seeing a lot of people having problems. They had bees in December and January, and they start reading too much on the internet. They're mixing powdered sugar or they're mixing sugar cakes up and adding pollen. Now they're stimulating the queen, and when you get a cold night, they're going to cluster. That's just natural. When they cluster, anything on the outside of the cluster gets chilled. Next day you see lots of dead bees. And I've gotten to the point where over the years, I don't even use pollen substitutes. I don't even use real pollen. For the main reason is you have to ask yourself, where did the pollen come from? Who produced it? What are they using in their hive? If you don't have that history, why are you going to all this trouble to be chemical free and then put this garbage in your hive? If they're bringing pollen in, they're working. That's what regulates the queen and the hive.
We call what your bees are mutt bees.
It's the best kind.
Yeah, they're just those mutt bees.
Do you use?
They're getting in high demand.
Do you use any propolis traps in your yard?
No. I strictly take it off of the frames. I don't like to put lots on the videos I've done several years ago. I'm big on not putting gizmos, gadgets, and all this other stuff, you know. We was talking about that. I signed a lady up here last week, and she took 2 classes. And I told her, I said, when they come out with queen catchers, we end up selling more queens than anybody else, you know. It's basically, it's a little snapping thing. The girls used to put them in their ponytails, and they're using them to catch queens, and they slip out of your finger and you snap the queen's head off. So I've been, you know, around bees most of my life. I can't ever in my life remember a queen stinging me. I mean, sometimes the workers will sting you, but, you know, there's no need to worry about a queen stinging. You reach down and pick her up. If you don't want to pick her up, put your hand there in front of her and just touch the back end, and she'll walk up on your hand. I mean, if you're afraid to pick them up. Queen catchers and the popsicle deal, where they got a tube like this and they got a stick and push it up like this and paint the queen. I've seen queens that come out of there with their eyeballs all white and green or whatever, they painted them shut. There's a lot of stuff out there that's killing bees. Beekeepers, I think, are their own worst enemy.
When you're cutting your queen cells, I'm assuming you're using multiple hives in your yard and not just a breeder queen box or breeder queen boxes.
Well, I'm using all the boxes out there that we use when we have queen cells. We try to use them. And my preferred method is let the bees make their own queen cells. And I keep going over that over and over and over. Grafting is only to clone or to multiply one type of race, gene, or color. It's not the best bee in the world. The ones that the bees themselves make, those are the best. So, you know, you can clone, you buy one breeder queen or even take a production queen. You can copy that 1,000 times a day. I mean, at the end of the week, you got 7,000 clones of this one bee. But why is people replacing queens so often? You know, my queens, I don't even advertise. I don't say my queens are better than anybody else's queens. I do a lot less, but a lot of my queens out there, the public buy is running 3 to 4 years. I've got queens run 3 to 5 years. Queens will not do their best until the second year. So to me, it don't even make sense to replace a queen twice a year or once a year just because someone said do it. Yeah. And I've been explaining that to students here the last month and a half. If they have a sale downtown and you drove your truck down there, it's running fine, but they got a motor, they'll put brand new motor in there for $500 and guarantee it. Just because it's on sale, you're not going to run down and put a motor in your truck. And that's basically like queens. You don't replace something that's broke. You take queens that people say, I got a spotty pattern. The queen's not performing the way it should. I guarantee you cage that queen, put her in a 5-frame nuke, put 4 or 5 frames of new foundation, put 4 frames of new foundation and 1 frame of honey, shake some bees on it. I guarantee you come back in 3 weeks and it's laying wall to wall. Because people look at their hive, the queen's failing because it's spotty. The hive is telling you we're getting mites, and the bees are hygienic, and they're pulling out the mites with the bees. So what I'm trying to put out there is basic common sense. Think before you spend your money. That's my whole goal, is to make everybody that listens here or comes up here a better beekeeper. There's no need, once you have the basics, to be buying bees, just other than if you want to change or add to your gene pool. That would be the only reason you want to buy a queen.
Okay.
I know I probably stop a lot of sales, but I'm telling you the facts, you know.
Thanks, Don.
All right, Don, we're getting behind on questions coming up on the other side. Kenny wants to know, he's curious about treating with mineral oil. Any thoughts or experience?
Mineral oil will kill. It's a slow kill. Basically, it's a suffocation of the mites. So you can do it either with a fogger. If you got a lot of hives, you could probably do 300, 400 hives in about 45 minutes to an hour. It's just a 1 second burst when you're blowing it in there. If you don't want to buy a vapor or a fogger, you can put paper towels on top of the top bars and just spray some plain old mineral oil. And it's just a laxative. When I do organic classes here, I've had people that they're purists. They say, well, I don't want to put this in the hive. I don't want to put that in the hive. I'll take a bottle of mineral oil and turn it up and drink some, 2 or 3 good tablespoons. It's just a laxative. It coats the bees.
How long
the bees are basically hygienic. They get up there. What?
How long do you last in the bee yard after you've drank some of that?
Well, everybody says I'm full of it anyhow, so it cleans me out once in a while. But you don't have to spend money to treat your bees. That is one very simple, easy way anybody can do it. And a bottle of mineral oil is about $1.80, and you could probably treat 300 or 400 hives with a paper towel. You go down to the dollar store, get the cheapest roll of paper towels, put 1 piece on top bars, and just what I usually do is I drill get the small drill bit out of your drill index box and just drill a hole in the cap. And I always keep an extra cap. One's got the hole in and one's the original where I can close the bottle back up. That's the easiest thing to treat your hive. That's 100 times better than just dusting them with powdered sugar, because mineral oil will actually kill the mites. Powdered sugar, they're just going to fall off. It will dislodge them, but it's not going to do anything as far as killing them.
Okay. We have another question from Michael. Do you recommend any essential oil treatments for the spring?
I like to, well, 2 of the main ones that I like to use tea tree oil in my sugar feed for the spring and the fall, because tea tree oil is an antibacterial, antifungal, and that will help hold down if you get any type of nosema in there or overwintering a hive. You'll end up noticing yellow streaking on a hive. That's where the bees can't get out and clean their body out, take a whatever they want to do in the air. Just they get out in the air and do it. But that's one way to do it.
Michael has a question. I've heard that you can't get new imports of live bees into the U.S. from Europe.
Well, I don't know about Europe, but Hawaii's got queens coming in all the time. I have gotten some from Hawaii. As far as out in Germany or Asia and places like that, I don't know. There was a thing about Argentina had a bunch of good queens, but I don't know if they got, the Africanized bees down there. Might be why they don't come in.
Lewis asks, what treatment do you prefer to kill Varroa mite inside closed cell? He says oxalic acid just kills on the outside, correct?
Right. There's nothing you're going to treat with inside the cell. Now, if you're feeding sugar water with wintergreen or spearmint in a combination, they're going to feed that in turn to the larva as it's growing. So you're less likely to reproduce mites in the cell. Now, wintergreen is very antiseptic. They used it in the Civil War to cleaning hospitals and stuff up. So it's a perfectly safe product. Very inexpensive to treat hives with that in the sugar water.
Okay, and last question for now. This is from Jason. He says, Don, I got your plans for the Nuke. Really simple and straightforward. Do you plan to sell your plans for the 8-frame setup?
There should be plans for everything on there in my webpage. For the minis, for the 8-frame, 10-frame, 5-frame. As far as I know, all the plans are up to date. If you got an 8-frame plan, just add 3 inches to it, and you got a 10-frame. But I really don't recommend 10-frame to a lot of people. It's just bees will build up faster in an 8-frame or even a 5-frame.
Okay, then let's see. Are we all caught up? Oh, Joe's calling back in.
Hey, Don, I know you're not too tech savvy. On your Hangouts on air you've been doing in the middle of the week, that link that it posts for that is for Google only. That's why nobody can ask any questions. Once you get in that Google on air, you're going to have to go to the top of the page and cut that or copy that link and paste it back to your Fat Bee Men's group so somebody can get on there and actually watch it in Google Plus.
Well, I'm going to have to get students here to help me do this kind of stuff. I did that video. We was waxing up mini nukes, and I had a private class I was doing, and we thought, well, let's shoot this up on air. And it didn't turn out as good as it should have because I was getting tangled up. I had a remote camera and my laptop down there, and we was walking back and forth, and I was getting dizzy. So it's a lot better if I have a couple students here kind of help me do that stuff. But I'll remind them if they do that.
Yeah, because once you get up on Hangouts on there and copy that link at the top and paste it back to your Fat Bee Men's group, that'll get them in where they can ask questions. Because on the YouTube version, they can't get in and ask questions.
Yeah. Well, I know this, as far as these blabs now, I had a hard time getting it to go up to YouTube. It says it goes up to YouTube, but I had to actually download it to an MP4 file and then upload it again to YouTube in order to get the last one up. So I know I'm far from high tech. I got to get someone to help me out on this stuff.
Yeah. I made some queen candy today. You make that look awful easy getting it that consistent. That's a little bit of work.
Well, the queen candy, when I done that video, that was 5 or 6 years ago. And that was one of my students, and he normally likes to play with the videos and edit stuff out. And I was over his bee yard, and we was making queen candy. And he was filming me making it, and then I looked up at him, and I says, this ain't going to work. It's just like old snot. And I thought he was going to take it out and, edit it out. He never did.
Yeah. It takes a little bit of work to get it right now.
I wish he would have. Well, it takes a little practice, but, once you get it, you got it.
Yeah, that's what I've been doing today, making queen candy and making my dipping board and trying to get ready. We're supposed to get 6 inches.
Getting all ready, huh? Good. I notice, that when I do chats, some people bring up some things. I happen to look through this old magazine here. I've done videos probably on YouTube back to 90, and I got some back about 1995 where I was explaining natural beekeeping. And natural beekeeping, I had a group out there, and we was using a 5-frame deep. And I was explaining to people that was in that club coming out. If you put another box on top of that, another deep, or even if you went with 2 more mediums or 3 more mediums, and then stand back and look at it, now you've got natural beekeeping. It's a tree, basically. And now you can work it all the way down. But I was looking through the book, and I seen some guy advertising. His idea was called an eco hive. And to me, it looked just like a 5-frame box stacked up. So there's a lot of people that take a lot of ideas and do a little twist to them and comes up with something new.
Yeah, if you put that queen candy in a container and it's sealed up airtight and put in the refrigerator, it keep a long time on it.
Well, even in Tupperware, we use Tupperware between, making our queen candy up. And it's good for about a week, 10 days. And then it starts to get too hard. The queen candy is made to a consistency. It's basically a time-release door that the bees eat through and release the queen. So if it gets too hard, what's going to happen is the queen's not going to get out when she should. The bees are going to end up making queen cells on you. And if it gets too hard, what I usually do is I just throw it in a batch of sugar water that I'm mixing up, and it stirs around a while, and it, dissolves.
Yeah. Well, I wrap mine in saran wrap, so that's pretty tight. I didn't know if it'd keep a while longer that way or not. Don't know.
Let me know how it does for you.
Okay.
Because we're making up a batch, just about 3 or 4 times a week. We have to make a batch of it up.
Okay, I'll see if it lasts a while. Because I'm just practicing today.
We'll make up, actually we make the queen candy up, and then we'll use it within an hour or 2 hours after. And when we put the queen candy in the cages, now we always put a piece of wax paper over the top. That helps hold the moisture in it a little bit. And even when you make them ahead like that, I like to use them up in 24 hours because if you add an extra day on it, it starts to get the surface hard, and it's a little difficult for the bees to eat through it.
Okay, thanks, Don.
I like to keep everything nice and smooth.
Thanks for all the help you're giving everybody.
Okay.
I'm making better beekeepers, I hope.
Chuck has a question. He says, at what night, day temperatures is it safe to start trying to raise queens?
55 and above. If it gets below 55, they're going to cluster too much. Now, if you got one cell and you put it in a hive, you're not too bad. But if you got several cells, or if you're grafting and you've got a bar, they're going to cluster. So you're going to have a 6 or 8 inch cluster there, and anything on the outside of that, they'll pull off those cells and they're going to chill and won't hatch.
Here's a question from DW. What size staples do you use on your hive bodies?
I basically like a 7/16 or a 1/2 inch crown, and I use 1.5 inches, and I always try to buy cement coated staples. They are coated with a glue, and when they go in so fast, they actually anchor in real good. Frames, I like to use 1/4 crown, and I like to use 1.25 inches to 1.5 inches. And I also prefer the cement coated ones there. That way they stay together for you.
John asks, what do you think about those Hawaiian queens?
I have bought them in the past. I mean, I wouldn't buy them on a regular basis. I hope that answers
probably
your
expensive getting them here.
I try to try different bees. I try to bring different genetics in, and the genetics that work, I redo a little bit. If something's not working, I'm not going to pursue it. And I haven't found bees, if you're buying it from one company, any different than any place else. Their quality will vary from year to year. Your biggest thing getting queens from Hawaii is the cost factor.
Okay, let's see. I think we're caught up for now. Anybody else? questions for Don? Michael Davis has been trying to log in, but I don't know if he's having problems or.
I think maybe people that have those smartphones or something have problems. And I don't know what it is.
Well, one person, it was their browser that was the problem. Okay, Michael Davis asks, when do you expect to start making your splits?
My splits, I'm going to start making them as soon as the weather's bright. I mean, right now, we're setting up, or we was doing waxing of the mini nukes. That's our first major job. So we got to wax frames for 200 to 300 of those, and then we're constantly building more. So the 5-frame nukes, we probably won't start doing much split until second week in March, maybe third week. It's anything you make splits on until Easter is running a very big gamble. And I probably talked about it once before on one of my chats. I made 75 splits. We had beautiful weather right up, I guess, 2 weeks before, a week before Easter. And then we had a record Easter freeze. All them bees clustered, the cells died. It was a mess. I lost 75 splits that I thought I could get a jump on it. So you've got to be cautious up to Easter. Once you get past Easter, then it's not so big a gamble.
Okay. Lewis asked about top bar hives. Do you use or have you tried them?
I'm a commercial type beekeeper. I do things to make money, and top bar hives go against principles of beekeeping, basically. Bees don't build horizontally. That's why if you get a bunch of people that have 10-frame hives, if they have a brand new hive, if they set it up, they always have the outside frames that never get drawn out. The only way they get drawn out is to move them to the inside and take the outside and move them out. If you put an 8-frame and set it out against a 10-frame, the 8-frame will outproduce it 2-to-1. Bees built vertically. They don't like to build horizontally. So if people come and they want to buy packages for top bar hives, I kind of refuse to sell it because it's just looking for trouble. They want to dump a bunch of bees in a box that has nothing for them to stay there. There's not much way to feed them. There's not much way to maintain them. They can't check them for mites. They have more problems than they're worth, I think. But there's people out there that do them. You can't extract the honey. It's not, there's no commercial value to it. If you want to sell a start of a top bar hive, you'd have to basically have 4 or 5 people come with their hands out, hand them a frame in each hand, and they have to walk over and put them in some other box. So they're hard to transport to another box. They're hard to make a split of it. Now you could catch a swarm off of a top bar hive and put it in a Langstroth. That was the main reason Langstroth came up with a movable hive, movable frames. They used to use skips, and skips, they outlawed them because you couldn't check them for disease and stuff. So that's why the movable frame come in play.
Don, what about like a horizontal hive when you're doing a like a double queen setup?
Horizontal hives. You mean a top bar hive?
No, well, I've seen the horizontal Langstroths where they're that's how they're doing a 2-queen setup. They're doing like 1 queen on the left side, 1 queen on the right side, queen excluder on top.
Well, that's a different configuration. When you refer to a 2-queen system, you put a deep, you have a queen down on a deep single, and then you have a queen excluder, and then you have a deep on top with another queen. I have run those in the past for supposed to be able to get a lot more production out of them, but if you're not standing there all the time, you're running so much population. Bees do 2 things, and the 2 basic things they do is multiply and store honey. So when you get the numbers to a certain point, you're running a fine edge of actually swarming all the time. So I have never found a good reason for it, and what I think you're trying to explain is on the horizontal, putting a queen excluder there. Now, some people start cells that way, and that's basically going to a queen right hive.
Okay. All right.
Where one side they're trying to draw cells and you have a queen on the other side, queen excluder is stood up vertically.
Right.
Now, I do a version of that as what I call it as a timing box. And we have a 10-frame hive with 3 dividers in it. There's 4 frames in the middle, and there's a queen excluder on each side of that. And that restricts the queen there. So on the far side, you have 2 frames there that the bees actually come in that side, that entrance, and the other side, there's 2 frames. And those are basically pollen and honey frames. So if you want to graft, let's say on Saturday, you come and pull one of the frames out of the center and you put a dot on it and move it to the extreme side and pull the outside frame up and you put it to the center. You come back on Saturday and you reverse it. You take the one out from the set that when you put it over the center, now you know you change that out. Everything that's in that frame is going to be exactly 3 days old. So that is a better way to graft them. Okay. There's a lot of ways to skin a cat when it comes to making these queens and stuff. So that's for people that are just starting to where they can get their timing down on these cells and the larvae.
Okay, a couple more questions rolled in.
That make more sense to you now?
Yes, it does. Thank you. What is the highest you should go when stacking deeps and supers?
Well, personally, I think if you pull the frames out, if you run a double deep, let's say, and you got frames that are full of honey, I think you should pull them out as soon as they're sealed. The higher you stack the honey, you got a lower grade of honey because they're mixing different blooms. So if you got say 20 hives and you pull two frames from each one that's sealed, you can isolate the bloom a lot better and you have a better taste of honey. Also, if you stack more than one box up and they keep putting honey, the bees are less likely to produce more honey. They have the feeling of, we got our supplies here for the winter. If you keep pulling it down, they work a little bit harder to replace it back. That's been my experience in it. I like to pull it as fast as it's sealed.
Okay. John asked, are you starting to feed syrup yet? If not, when?
I won't start feeding syrup out here probably until the last week, probably in March. It just depends. If the weather warms up in the middle of March, I'll start pouring it to them then.
Okay.
And then I'll put my essence of oils in.
Michael asked, I didn't know it was going to be this difficult choosing supplies for my bees. When I get them on the 7th of May, I've still got to add frames, wax foundation, boxes, and of course, order a 4x5 frame nukes before the 16th of February. This is going to cost me an arm and a leg for all, we got cut off, for all this. My question is, what is the minimum supplies needed to start beekeeping with four frame nukes?
Well, I would, first of all, I'd be buying 5 frame nukes. And then you just transfer those 5 frames into your existing box that you're going to buy. Best thing to do is make them. If you got a skill saw and a square, you basically can make a hive. You don't have to have a fancy hive. You could put little blocks on the outside and screw them in with a screw gun to make handles on it. You don't have to have a fancy rabbit. You can butt joint it. I mean, I have actually done a class out here with a skill saw and cut a rabbit in a box with a skill saw and a square and a board with 2 C-clamps. I mean, each person's skill level, you know, I try to keep the cost down, make as much as you possibly can. But, you know, it is what it is. And if you can't build it, you're going to have to buy it or have somebody build it for you.
Okay. I think we all caught up. John asked,
most people, they talk about
go ahead, Don.
When people talk about nukes and stuff, you should be buying a 5 frame nuke. There's people out there that want to sell you a 3 frame or a 4 frame. You should get a 5 frame box, 5 frame nuke. It should have a good frame of honey in there, some pollen. You should have at least 2.5 frames of sealed brood in there. and you should have bees covering all the frames. And you should be able to open the box, inspect it before you buy it. You should see the queen walking in that hive, and you should see eggs. Those are the main things. Don't just reach down there and get a box that's all taped up and the guy says, here's your nuke, here you go. I don't do it, and I try to teach my students. Go through the box, point the queen out to the customer, show her it's laying. A lot of people will cage a queen that don't even belong in there, and then they'll pull a frame here and a frame there and dump some bees in it, and you don't have a good nuke. You've got a few strikes against you. But if you hold the frame up, you see the queen is actually walking around. They're not balling her up. You know she belongs there. Then look at the brood pattern. See if she's laying. Not this because you see a queen. Make sure you see eggs. You could have a virgin queen in there. I mean, I'm trying to teach as much things as I possibly can, but we have so many people out there that will take advantage of a new beekeeper, and it gives beekeeping in itself a bad name.
Don, do you paint your queens? Mark them?
I don't like to paint queens personally. I have several old beekeepers that have problems with eyes. I will mark them for them, but there's no reason to mark a queen unless you live in an area where you have a lot of Africanized bees.
What is treating Varroa? What's treating Varroa?
Treating Verroa is when you have mites on your bees.
Oh, bees come with mites. What about, is that related to colony collapse, or is this its own separate issue?
It's related to colony collapse. If you have a lot of mites on a hive, it's going to cause the hive basically to collapse.
But isn't that different
die.
than the worldwide collapse of, isn't it like two different types of syndromes? Like mites would be local, whereas like the recent things you see in the news about honeybee collapsing, wouldn't that be a larger type syndrome than just mites? Because mites seems like it's a local issue. I don't think they'd be so stuck by mites.
Mites can be just about everywhere. I mean, United States is starting to get a lot more mites. They was imported here from
that. I mean, if the scientists, if let's say the mites took down a comb, you'd see the little carcasses of the mites there. You'd see evidence of the mites. The honeybee collapse, the scientists were having trouble locating the source of the cause. So I don't think it could be mites, because mites, at least you could see the little bodies of the insects and you could determine they were a factor in this, but they didn't mention anything about mites being a factor.
Well, I'm not an expert on it, but what I have seen on television and articles and movies of it, everything I see piled up on piles is really black looking comb. So you have comb that is old. You have beekeepers that are doing migratory pollination. They're collecting pesticides from every crop they pollinate.
Say that one more time about the comb. A black looking something?
Black looking comb. It's just because it's old, they don't change it out. Wax accumulates all kinds of pesticides. It's a chemical sponge like.
So wait, I've only seen wax, at least commercially, or when you see a beehive, it's like orangish or clear. What are you talking about, black comb? I don't even know what that means. Why is it black?
Each time a larva develops into a bee, what's happening is there's a small carcass in there, a cocoon. It's like a birthplace for the bee. And each time it goes through its cycle, it keeps building up, building up. And as the comb gets older and older, it becomes darker and darker.
The bees normally change out the comb, and that this is an abnormality?
The bees don't normally change it out. Now, bees in some instances will chew comb down and carry it out. But by changing,
becoming black is a normal phenomenon within beehives.
Over a period of time, it's a normal thing.
So should it become black at a certain point, or does just the fact that it's black for too long the indicator? Because it seems like it's some kind of indicator of something.
Once it gets black, it should be an indication to you to change it out. And if you just changed out 2 or 3 frames per hive every other year, you're going to keep
the hives like you're a beekeeper with a box versus the bees finding the bees in their own natural habitat.
Right. When they're in their natural habitat, they call it swarming. So when the bees, the comb gets old and starts to get contaminated with chemicals, they actually swarm and leave that there and start a new residence somewhere, in a tree, a box, a house, a tree, wherever they can find it.
Well, so you've studied up on bee talk, in other words.
I know I haven't studied up on bee talk.
It sounds like you're somewhat knowledgeable about it.
Well, I kept these for 60 years, but I'm still
I would
learning.
consider you a teacher at that point. 60 years of beehive keeping? Come on. You're selling yourself short.
I teach beekeeping here, yes, but I'm not
but
the
you're
one that has all the
knowledgeable
answers.
On it.
I
you
can
know
keep
better
bees
than me
alive.
how to keep the bees alive. I consider you the teacher then at that point.
Hi, Joe.
I'm a self-taught beekeeper, so
I appreciate
high tech.
self-taught men, because typically what you get when you go to like an academic setting or a quote expert, they have an elitist view of their knowledge. Like, this is the infallible, authoritative last word on beekeeping. And if you give me any other stance of beekeeping, any of your personal experience on keeping bees, it doesn't apply. And therefore, you never can progress with that knowledge. Whereas if you're self-taught, you don't really necessarily have those restrictions. It's possible, but you just generally don't have those restrictive mindsets of how beekeeping should be done and what are the protocols. And you might discover something along the way that might work a little better than, say, somebody who's just, I've learned beekeeping. I went to beekeeping school. I've studied for 10 years. I put all my effort and my identity into beekeeping. Therefore, I'm not wrong, because if I'm wrong, that means my identity is also affected. I feel bad as a person. Therefore, I can't accept a counter argument or a counter proposal to my beekeeping knowledge.
Yeah.
Well, basically, what I'm telling you on these chats that I do on a regular basis is I'm relating to you where I have lost time, lost money, listening to other people, made mistakes, and I've learned to either correct your mistake or you have to move on. So I'm not one who is no expert by no means.
Hey, Joe, it's all you.
Don, you always talk about the time's money. I've got an idea it might work for some people out there. Talk about building boxes. The local high school got wood shops, and they get all their wood donated. Take a Nuke box down there and see what they'll build them for you for. It might be surprising how cheap you can get boxes built.
Well, I got one on you here, Joe. Now listen to what I tell you now. This is going to be some real good advice. Did you ever read Tom Sawyer and Huckleberry Finn? You know how he conned him into painting his fence?
Yeah.
How many people do you know come here pay me to paint my fence?
I know all about that. We've talked. Me and Les have talked about that many a night. Not all of us got that advantage, though. Thanks, Don.
Okay.
Hey, Nathan? Hello?
I guess Nathan's experiment is not working.
I don't want to know what he's building. All right, let's see. We had some questions on the side here. Tim asked, I had one dead out with a lot of Varroa on the bottom board. I noticed a bunch of Varroa along the propolis where the entrance reducer was. Does this indicate anything in particular?
It's strange that he finds a Varroa. You will usually find dead bees. In order to find Varroa, you'd have to actually be looking at a microscope or a big magnifying glass to see them. And the Varroa usually is not on dead bees. When they get to a certain point, the Varroa mites are going to start falling off, and they're going to find a living host to cling to. Because the Varroa, basically what they're doing is they're sucking the blood from the bees. I think and it depends on where he's at. I think what it might be is he's got a natural die-off through the winter, and maybe a lot of people see 20 bees in front of the entrance there, and they get all panicky. My bees are dying. It's a natural thing. Bees only live so long in the summer and so long in the winter.
Okay, anybody else have a question? We're just over 9 o'clock.
Okay, we're going to take one or two more questions, and we're going to head out.
Anybody get your questions in now? Okay, Herschel, he has. Don, getting back.
We had a good turnout tonight, huh?
Yeah, we got about 40 people watching now. 300 had subscribed to watch.
Yeah.
Herschel says, Don, getting back to Verroa and Oxalic, do you advocate using oxalic acid exclusively or switching off with other treatments?
Well, basically, if you're going to run bees to make a living at it, I would stick with oxalic acid vaporizer. If you want to hit it in between times with the fogger with mineral oil, and you could put some thymol in that, but that is 100% kill. What I'm doing here is I have to teach a lot of different methods, and that's why I talk about so many different ways to treat. There's a softer treatment, and there's a little bit harsher treatment. This is the best all-around treatment other than putting some kind of pesticide in there. Now, the strips that you put in the hive is a chemical. It's going to embed it into the wax, so you're going to end up eating it eventually.
Okay, we have a question here. What do you do to your propolis from the frames before you sell it?
I don't do nothing to it. Personally, I just scrape it. I have people that come down and buy it, and they'll make tinctures out of it, or they make salves out of it. I try to leave the refining to the person who's buying it, because no two people refine it the same. Some will use alcohol, some use vodka, some use different methods of rendering it down to the product they want. So I basically leave it in its raw state. That way they can look at it, they can taste it, they can judge what they're getting and buying.
Okay. He also asked, who do you sell it to? I've collected a couple of pounds.
Best thing to do is contact several of your health food stores. I personally have never had to contact anybody. I have the videos up and everything. I have people contacting me a lot. So I don't hunt for sales. They usually hunt for suppliers.
TJ Jones, wasn't sure what killed the hive, but there are several Varroa on the bottom board. I think it was one that I had treated with oxalic acid.
He might have treated too late in the fall. And that could be too. It could be Verroa that was in caps, that was sealed up, ready to hatch. That's why you should give 2 to 3 good treatments before winter sets in. October and November is good. Give them good treatment. Well, if we ain't got no more questions, we'll head out and look to see everybody next week.
Sounds good to me.
Appreciate everybody showing up. I appreciate you giving us a hand here,
No
Lazarus.
problem. Okay, everybody saying thank you on the right side there to you, Don.
Okay. I need to figure out how to get my thing where I can see what they're writing. I got a blank screen.
You don't
on
see
this side over here.
anything on the left or right?
I see a chat on the left side, but there ain't a thing on it. It just says pause recording, and then
And you don't
above
see
that
the
it says
questions
tweet
underneath
and
the
post.
pause?
And no,
Huh.
it doesn't say nothing there. And I shut my computer down before I went on, so I rebooted everything to be fresh on it. So
Oh, wait a
what's going
minute.
on?
You must have, I don't know. Okay. We'll figure it out next week. All right. See you later, Don.
All right. See everybody next week. All right. Thank you.